sensibility that the students are trying to bring to this issue here on your campus is such a critical piece of what needs to happen, particularly in this country. Craig and I just came back from Israel and Palestine. We were there in March. And our friend Amira Haas, who's an Israeli reporter who writes in the newspaper Haaretz, had just written an article a couple of weeks before when she wrote that she lives in Ramallah because she believes that if you're going to write about a place, you should go to that place. If you were going to write about Mexico, you would go to Mexico to write about Mexico. She's a Jewish Israeli. She lives in Ramallah in order to write from there. And she wrote that when she traveled to Tel Aviv, even when the worst was happening in Gaza, Gaza was invisible. It was as though nothing was happening there. And I think that the same is very true for us here in the United States. It's certainly what we witnessed as well when we were in Tel Aviv. We went to Nazareth, which is an Israeli city, but has a Palestinian population. And even there, it was really a wonderful experience for us to get better insight into how the 20% of Palestinians who live in Israel, what their experience is, and some of what their grievances are, what their problems have been. But I was also very struck by the fact that though Gaza was very near, it felt very far away from Nazareth as well. I just want to sort of, in thinking about Gaza, there's so much to say, but for me it's very, very personal. We have friends there. The family members who were in the house that Rachel stood in front of, some of them have come to the United States and traveled and spoken with us. We'll talk about that more tonight. You'll hear more about them. But when we hear about things happening in Gaza, they're very real human beings that this is happening to. And I know it's true for many of you here as well. I'm sure we have Palestinian students here who have direct connections to Gaza. I think we all need to feel those very personal connections. One story that now sticks with me, it comes from our last evening in Israel and Palestine. We were in Ramallah. We gave a talk. We also gave a talk in West Jerusalem where we were invited by Israeli Jews to come and talk to them, because there are people there who are working to find solutions, and that's what we need to be doing here in the United States as well. But the woman in Ramallah sat in the front row after our talk, and she told me that her brother had lived in Gaza. She hadn't been able to go to Gaza for 7 years. He was sick and he was dying. And she asked for permission through the Israeli government and the IDF to be able to go to Gaza. This woman was older than I am, probably in her 70s. She was denied permission to go to Gaza to be with her brother as he was dying. And her question to me, very quietly spoken, was, what threat could I possibly have been? And that was the question that she posed to the IDF as well. And all I could say to her was to acknowledge the inhumanity of that particular instance. I've just finished reading some articles in Tikkun magazine, and in one of them, Rabbi Arthur Waskow, in talking about the 60th anniversary of the founding of Israel and of the Nakba, says that we need to remember all the dead and acknowledge each other's dead, because when we fail to do that, then we tend to, if we think only about our own dead, then we tend to think in terms of revenge. I'm happy to see all of the children being acknowledged behind us, and I would just urge those who are dissenting today, I hope, to bring their energies to working together with people here to acknowledge our responsibility here in the United States for all that's going on, and to be part of the solution instead of part of the silencing, part of the problem. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all tonight.
Hi, I'm Rachel Corrie's father, Craig Corrie, and I'm really pleased to be here on at an institution of learning because I have so much to learn. And I just want to say a couple of words about, because this is the 60th anniversary of the Nakba and the founding of Israel and those two competing stories. And looking back at history, it's a new experience to me, really, since Rachel's killing, since, in fact, the memorial for Rachel a week after she was killed, to get spiritual advice from Muslims. But I did at her memorial. There was an imam that talked at her memorial service, and then later I was at dinner with a Muslim attorney. And it's, in fact, unique, I think, in my experience, I'm sorry, Jim, but to get spiritual advice from an attorney. But this attorney turned to me and he said, Craig, the question is not why do bad things happen to good people. The question is, what do good people do when bad things happen? And I think about our recent history. The history of Israel, of course, is all my life. I'm a year older than Israel. I'm a year older than the Nakba. Going back, though, before that and to the Holocaust. And I think of the responsibility of the Western states for the Holocaust, for not allowing Jews to come to the United States, and that's the United States, that goes for Great Britain. It goes for then creating a world in which some people are not safe. And I don't think that looking back at that history to try to figure out who did what first is particularly helpful. But I think it is helpful then to look and say, what did we promise? Because I was a Gentile then saying, never again. Yet, what about the killing fields in Southeast Asia? What about the continuing killing that goes on and on and on in Africa, and the genocide that around Sarajevo and other places in this world? And that is during my watch. That is during my lifetime. And yet we let that go on. And that's a desertion of those people who were killed, it seems to me, in the Holocaust. That abandons them once more when we allow other people to be abandoned. And I submit to you that when we allow people to be abandoned in Gaza, that we abandon those same Holocaust people again when we ignore it happening over and over and over again. So the question is not who's responsible. We're responsible. We know the answer to that. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And that's what I pose to you today. Thank you.
Just a quick announcement. That program is going to be tonight at Crystal Cove Auditorium in the Student Center. It'll be starting, the doors will open at 7:30 and the program starts at 8. You should try to get there at 7:30. Now, if we have some extra... Where is it? I already said that. Yeah. But, and now we have more time for questions. If anyone has any more questions for Mr. Lafferty or...
Yeah, well, the others. Let me, before I take another question or two, I forgot to say something when I was talking about this campus, actually. I'm now informed, and we're in the process of gathering the evidence, that, and I hope there's some folks here from the administration of this fine institution, that the playing field is not always level here when it comes to the expression of the beliefs that are being expressed this week, as opposed to when contrary views are being expressed. And already some of the student leaders here have pointed out to me some of that inequality of treatment at the hands of the administration. That must end. I'm now aware of it. Therefore, the National Lawyers Guild is now aware of it. And the National Lawyers Guild will be very happy to level the playing field here for everyone, so that all views can be expressed without one view being given favoritism. But there were some other folks who wanted to ask a question. Oh, yes, sir.
I've got a question for the parents of Rachel Corrie.
It's after the night.
How do you feel,
I can hear you.
about Rachel Steinberg, Rachel Ed, Rachel Mayan, and about 20 to 25 other Rachels in Israel who were blown up by homicide?
I think that should be clear to you from what I said about remembering everyone's dead. Of course, remember those Rachels. Why weren't we remembering them long before my Rachel perished? Of course. You know, I think sometimes these questions get asked in order to somehow present the idea that there is balance in the violence that happens. There is violence that happens on both sides and suffering. And Craig and I have personally